Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman Show. My guest today is medium, teacher and author, the lovely Claire Broad. Claire, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to this.
I'm so excited to finally get you on because we met quite a while ago now, didn't we? We met through our mutual friend, Theresa Cheung, our mutual co-author, Theresa Cheung. And yeah, she's put us in touch and finally you're here. So can you, you've just had the most incredible, I suppose, propulsion into the limelight with your work recently, with your best-selling book, What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us, and also your book that you wrote with Theresa, which I've now, after just saying it to you, forgotten the name of.
Answers from Heaven.
Answers from Heaven. So tell us a little bit about how you discovered your gift of mediumship. How did this all start for you?
Well, it goes right the way back. In fact, in What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us, which isn't an autobiography, but I do share insights into my life, really, to help ground the teachings. I write in there about the fact that my mum says that from about the age of 2, maybe I was younger than that, but from the ability to be able to say the first simple words, if you like, she would come in after, you know, me having had a nap or been put down to sleep, come in the morning, and I would be standing up sort of in my cot pointing to areas in the room and saying, man, man. So, you know, it would happen often enough for her to start thinking there's something in this, because she would start off by saying, no, man, there's no man, I can assure you you're fine, there's no man. And then she realised that as I was becoming more and more persistent with this over time, that she started to think this is strange and maybe there's something I'm not seeing that Claire is, you know.
Do you think she was freaked out, or do you think she was quite cool with it all?
Well, as it turns out, my nan, she wasn't a medium, but she had her own experiences herself. In fact, she could have been probably a fantastic medium had someone pointed out to her that she could develop that ability, but to her it was just spontaneous occurrences that happened dotted throughout her life, and she was very grounded with it all. But she would share stories with my mum as my mum was growing up about things, people she'd seen, spirit people she'd seen, so my mum was kind of open-minded. I wouldn't say that we weren't particularly religious, although she did used to go to a Church of England church, but we weren't brought up sort of indoctrinated into that. My dad was agnostic, and my family in general didn't really give much thought to the afterlife. So it wasn't like I didn't grow up in a household encouraging it, let's put it that way. But when I said these things, my mum was open-minded enough to not poo-poo it either, just to think, that's interesting, you know, can she say something I can't? She was open. But she didn't sort of encourage it in any way. She didn't belittle me either. She didn't say, oh, don't be stupid, there's no one there, you know, there was none of that.
She just let it, that's beautiful.
Let it fly,
let it unfold. That's gorgeous. Yeah.
So
I have to say,
sorry, Alex.
I'm just going to say, while you're talking, I don't, people who watch this show are quite open as well, obviously, but your aura is white and bouncing off your head right now. So I just want to kind of point that out. Like, I feel like, do you have any idea of who you are as a soul in terms of like your past lives, your kind of, I guess, the bigger aspect of you as a soul and your mission on the earth plane? I mean, obviously you're here to help people communicate into the afterlife and things like that. Have you had any insights into who you were before and why you came in so open?
I've been really blessed, and I'm glad you've got an open-minded audience, because the thing is, once you start to expand your awareness, and basically mediumship is a pathway to spiritual enlightenment. It's, you know, I think it's as valuable as any other religion. And once I started putting a practice in where you are actually, I suppose the only difference is that you're hands-on, you're actually putting into action what you would learn in other philosophies, you start to open your mind up to a greater reality. So I've had many insights through meditation that have stunned me, and I've had to go away and Google words that have come to me, insights that have been brought to me, things that I didn't know. Plus, as I developed my own relationship with my own spirit teachers, as they've come close, they've given me lots of steer and insight into why I'm here, what I was doing before. So yes, I mean, I have been told, obviously I can't prove it, but I have been told that I was, which I find interesting actually, doing this in previous incarnations. So right the way back into antiquity, as far back as Sumeria has been mentioned to me, that I could read the sky like a book with regards to the stars, and that I was like, I suppose, high priestess type level in those days, but that I've obviously I've repeated that kind of learning and journey, and it seems to me that I've gone backwards, because I think we had a knowledge that we used to have.
It was just
got lost.
Our birthright, wasn't it? I think.
Absolutely.
Well, I got told to wear this morning, and so I'm getting. There was a big connection to Egypt.
Yes,
and maybe we had a connection in Egypt. I don't know, but it's ancient. It is ancient knowledge, and it's. I think, and this is where the conversation always, it just opens out. I love it. I feel like a lot of us. There's a lot of mediums and spiritual teachers now popping up all over the planet, isn't there? There's so many people awakening. Yeah. And I almost feel like we are, in a way showers, people who've come back. We have ancient knowledge, and we remember, or we've had to remember this in order to help others open to their memories. And it's like this ripple effect that's going out, I think. So that's incredible. I love the visual of you reading the sky like a book. So in this life, how did you start to develop it? Did you go into training, or what sorts of things did you do to enhance or embrace your gifts?
Well, because I was having, insights from a teenager, I started seeing my spirit guide basically standing at the end of my bed as I would wake up. I would see him. I was kind of having some quite in-your-face experiences, let's put it that way, that drove me more like to wanting to understand more about it than me just having a keen interest. It's obvious to me now that he was basically saying, right, come on, you're a teenager now, time to start learning, time to get hands-on. So I went to see a medium because of, there's just no such thing as coincidences there, but I was working at Reebok International at the time, funny enough, and the lady there said to me that she had an appointment with a medium, and at that time I had loads going on in my life psychically with this being who was showing himself and appearing in my I was quite intimidated, quite frightened by it, to be honest. So I thought, right, I'm going along there and I'm going to find out what, can this lady tell me anything? What's going on? Because she picked up on it straight away. My teacher, Sheila Thomas, phenomenal medium. She picked up on it all, picked up on what I was saying earlier, sorry, I meant to say this. When I was 4, I gave a message from my granddad. That's when I remember giving my first message.
First message at 4 years old. That's
at 4, yeah. So, but my teacher, Sheila, she picked up on it, saying, I've got your granddad here, you've given a message from him, you've spoken to him directly, plus I can see that there's a spirit guide with you, and explained everything that had been going on around me. And I was like, whoa, So
at that stage, could you hear your guide, or was it more you were just seeing him?
No, I couldn't. Yeah. It was spontaneous.
That can make it scary, can't it?
Yeah, exactly. It was that hypnagogic state, falling asleep, waking up, seeing what scientists would say is a hallucination. For me, I think, no, we're more in tune with spirit at those times, and that's when the door can be more open. So it was happening in those times. Plus, they were using my clairsense, so I was getting smells, objects were moving. Actually, I think quite common stuff when you talk to other mediums. There seems to be a pattern that unfolds in being able to use your senses in this way before you actually discipline yourself and learn. Yeah. And the interesting thing was that Sheila said to me, they're asking me if you will come and learn under my guidance, and I will take on that responsibility if you want to learn. But I was only sort of 18, 19 at the time, and it took me another 2 years till I was 21 to actually think, no, I'm actually going to do this. And for me to sit with her literally every month, twice a month, I sat with her and learned to just sit in what mediums call sitting in the power, sitting in my space, sitting in my energy, and then learning my energy field, my subtle body, learning to meditate, learning to get still, learning to stop switch the thoughts off, and then learning to go with the flow of imagination and creativity and allow the symbolism of spirit to come into my mind without me dismissing it. I mean, that took years.
Yeah, we have to catch up the other side of the brain, don't we? We're so indoctrinated into that logic and that reason and the...
Yeah, and I have a real battle. I mean, I am a creative person. You know, I worked for Disney for years, and I'm a creative person, but I have that analytical mind where I'm like, I need to understand it, you know. I was never any good at maths at school because people used to say, oh, don't ask questions, it just is this way. And I'd be like, no, but why is it that
why?
Doesn't make sense. So yeah, I have this like dance, which is why I've looked into the science as well as getting hands-on. In fact, I think spirituality is mutual with that. You've got to get hands-on. You've got to understand it and get hands-on.
We need the evidence, don't we? Otherwise, we have no reference points, really. We won't really understand the point of it if we don't have that balance point. Tell us about the science of it, because you've delved quite deeply into this side of things, haven't you?
Well, it's just because as a practicing medium, you know, you're open to all sorts of cynicism, quite rightly. I mean, let's face it, there is some real rubbish out there. Yeah. So, you know, I can understand where the cynics and deniers come from. I can see their side of things. But, you know, as a practicing medium, I took the responsibility of what I was offering people as a service seriously. And I wanted to make sure, what is it that they seem to think they know that I don't? What have I missed? Because I'm definitely having experiences that don't fit in with their model of the world. You know, the way that they look at reality is not my experience of reality. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clued up and informed. And actually, spiritualism has been a philosophy that has been scientifically tested for over 150 years now. You know, it does go hand in hand, because like you say, you are trying to find evidence of survival. So I did delve into it, but it's such exciting times because there is more and more scientists open their minds up now, because, you know, their own understanding of science is shifting and changing, and how they understand the universe and what reality is, and more to the point, how they don't understand reality. Because I had the great privilege of sitting with Dr. Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven. I had a coffee with him one morning with the lovely Theresa Cheung, and it really struck me that he said until scientists learn to go within and get to grips with what consciousness is, they won't understand the universe. Because there's this element of reality that we know is there because we're conscious, yet scientifically he says that we can't even string a sentence together scientifically about what that is.
It's about the unseen, really, isn't it? I mean, they think that it has to be like a physical, you know, but we're learning to see differently. And when you can learn to see differently, you open up to so much more. I mean, you and I can see things that others can't see.
Exactly.
And it just is our world. But how do you quantify that? Well, I think now that we've got quantum physics and all of that stuff coming in, and the multiverse and that, they're starting to catch up, but it is slow going, isn't it? I think that's...
Well, it is. I mean, they're still looking externally, and we're dealing with the esoteric. They're dealing with the exoteric, if you like. They're looking outside of themselves still. You know, that's missing the point almost. So I think until they start to realise there's a whole level of reality within themselves that they haven't yet tapped into, that actually can give results that provide evidence of something more. I mean, I have the privilege of having taught a lovely lady who's a lawyer, who taught me how to look at evidence in the manner of it, as it would be looked at in a court of law, because, you know, she came into this movement as a fraud expert, believe it or not.
Oh wow, it's very black and white there, isn't it?
Yeah, and so she joined my circle of you know, students, and if anybody was qualified to weasel out fraud, it was her. Obviously we had a lovely relationship. She sat for years learning under my guidance, and but I learned so much from her, because, you know, we can see there's different types of evidence, and that many times when we're having a spiritual experience, it gives us insight that goes beyond our own knowledge. Say, like when you're meditating and you get a word in a foreign language that comes to you that you didn't know, but you Google it and find it's got great meaning to what you're being shown, that kind of thing. I mean, it does start to go beyond probability that you've tapped into something wider than yourself, because you didn't have that knowledge,
Can you share with us some of your best examples of evidence that's been shown to you, like when you've had an insight and then you've maybe gone away and Googled it or found out what you were being shown actually was?
Oh gosh, there's so many, honestly. It's getting more and more and more, because the more I sit, 24 years now sitting with spirit, the closer that connection gets. So I can think of I was a couple of examples. One very recently, strangely enough, I was doing a reading for a scientist who I know through Cambridge University, and I just gave literally a download of channeling to him that was coming to me from one of his guides, and I was given a name in I guess it's Latin. I don't even know. This is the thing. I was given the name, which I won't say, obviously, because this is personal to him. But it was an old English, Latin, almost Roman sounding name that I knew I had no knowledge of. But the interesting thing is, this person who I looked up, I found, was a 16th century alchemist.
Oh my
and
God,
I'm dealing with, I know, and I was dealing with a scientist. So you can see why someone from that time
world,
who would have been considered the scientist of their time would be connecting with him. So, it's those kinds of situations. I was sitting in meditation once myself, and I remember seeing the most beautiful Indian guide coming in front of me, not Native American, actual, Indian culture. I don't know from which area, but she just stood right in front of me and went like this and said Sumati. And I was thinking, I don't know what that is. I have no idea. So I opened my eyes. I saw this tiny dot of light, because I was expecting to see her there. So this tiny dot of light flickering around as spirit left, and I quickly grabbed my tablet. I keep my tablet close now, so I can quickly Google. And so Samadhi is Sanskrit, so it's Indian language for pure of mind, clear in mind, like clear channel, basically. It's meditation.
And that's your name too, Claire, isn't it? It means clear.
Yes, it does.
It's my middle name.
Yeah, it means clear light.
Clear light. Actually. That's who you are.
So my mum jokes. She's like, my mum says to me, she must have been inspired to want to give me that name, because I'm a clairvoyant.
Oh yes,
it's like the perfect name.
I didn't even put two and two together there.
Yeah. Well, there you are. See, you've got it in your name too, then.
Yeah. I think our names are important too. I think it took me a long time. I don't know about you. It took me a long time to kind of step into my name. I've always, I go by Al or Alex. To go by Alexandra has only been sort of like the last 5 years when I've stepped into my power. But when you look up what Alexandra means, it's helper of God and defender of mankind. And I'm like, wow. Okay. And then my middle name is Clear Light. And then Wenman is a whole other ball game. It's like bearer of news or something. It's like, wow. And I kind of look at people who do these soul plan readings. Somebody once told me if I stayed with this name, I was always going to have to learn and grow by really hard dark nights of the soul. And that has been my pattern so far. But I am not going to change my name. I feel I have a purpose to transcend that karma. And that's part of the journey to enlightenment or ascension or whatever you would call it. So I love you because you're like Claire Broad, so you're clear light that spreads all the way around.
Oh, I like that. I never even thought about that. Yeah, that's my married name, isn't it? It is funny though, because actually it's weird we're having this conversation, but I was having the same conversation with my daughters the other day, who are now 11 and 12, because when I named them with my husband, we didn't think spiritually at all. I was thinking names that would last, that they could grow into, that were, classic, that they wouldn't be, mortified to have been given, all that was going through my head. But actually, when I look up my eldest daughter's name, actually, her first and middle name now mean warrior of the light. And my youngest daughter's name is fairy magic and all of that, you know. So I just think, okay, there is no coincidences. This is all coming at us from angles, even when we don't even know it is. We're receiving insight constantly, aren't we?
Totally. And I believe we all choose our own names, even if it's the parent. It's like it comes to the parent.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, because you chose it yourself. Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, we are ancient beings, and like you say, there is more and more people waking up to that fact. And I loved what you said earlier, that, you know, it was our birthright to have this knowledge. As you know, in ancient times gone before, people would have everyday people would have accepted they got insight in dreams and paid attention to their dreams, and you know, that was no big deal. Now, if people started predicting their dreams accurately, they get money off it, you know. But you know, in those days, that would have just been part and parcel. To be a seer or a high priestess or whatever, a magician, the magi, you would have had to really been on it and proven yourself to levels above the norm.
Absolutely.
And I just think that we have kind of come to hold the light. That's how I see it, to help people remember who they are. You asked me earlier what I think my purpose is. I actually think it's that. You know, I let people know that there's more to this world by connecting and doing a reading and giving them something, if you like, tangible to see that it's real. But that's to me, that's helpful, and it's healing, and it brings comfort, and it's definitely a part of my work. But I feel a medium's job is to turn a light on inside that person so that they understand who they are, and that they live their best life, because they start to understand that they've got a greater power at their disposal than they realise, that they're more than they understand themselves to be, you know.
You're illuminating them. It's like being a bridge, isn't it? It's a doorway into or into those other realms. It's so beautiful. I mean, even being in your presence it's lovely. You've got a lovely calming energy and this lovely bubbly kind of excited kind of energy, and that's your personality too. I love that you bring humor and fun and everything into it, and you do kind of bring this lightness of being to this work, because I think a lot of people have kind of misconceived notions about what it is, and people can be quite fearful of what they don't know. I know that my own experience of mediumship is so beautiful and so humbling to be able to connect in this way. So can you tell us a little bit about how you work, Claire? Like, when you experience mediumship, what happens to you? Is it eyes open, eyes closed? Is it physical? Is it in the clairvoyance? What's your actual experience of it like? Let's get inside your head.
Yay! It's quite empty in there. I mean, that's a compliment. I'm trying to get it more and more empty.
Hey, I'm the blonde one here, girl.
I think that I describe it like a game of charade. For me, I need to keep everything simple. There's no point teaching something that other people can't grasp. I've seen and heard the most beautiful wisdom addresses in my time from mediums, which have sounded eloquent and so amazing. But when it comes down to actually integrating that in everyday life, it's like, okay, I don't know how to apply that. Yeah. So I'm trying to keep things simple. So if I describe it for me like a game of charades, I think, people can probably understand, you know, because they've all probably played charades at sometimes. So I'm clairsentient. So basically, I feel that connection. So when I was 4 and I felt my grandfather come around me, I just knew he was there. It was almost like the energy around me shifted. I felt him wrap his love around me. I felt his personality. I felt him to a level of knowing that I would never feel in physical terms, you know. I just knew him inside and out, and I recognized him instantly, and I just can sense and know that there's a spirit person there. Now, how I try and help people understand that is as real to me as the air that I breathe is when, you know, I use an example of when you walk into a room and 2 people have been arguing, and you walk into that atmosphere and it hits you, and you could sometimes cut it with a knife, as we say. You know, there's something, tangible there, but you can't actually hold it. You couldn't measure it. You couldn't scientifically measure it. But if anyone tried to tell you the atmosphere wasn't there, you would vehemently deny it. You would say, no, there is, or if you walk into a church and feel the reverence, or even into just people's homes. I mean, we're all doing it naturally. Walk into other people's homes, get a good vibe, or, an uncomfortable vibe, or whatever, it's that kind of real to me. And then if I see anything, the clairvoyance for me, I describe it, I'd say to people, visualize your front door in your mind. You can see the letterbox, the keyhole, but it's not how you and I are looking at each other with physical eyes. Oops. And if I hear anything, it's like a song playing out in my head, that internal hearing. So
it's like your own thoughts, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah. It's like a voice, isn't it? Like it's always been described, like a voice in your mind that isn't yours, but it's there. And so then I'm charading. I've just felt this. I've just seen that. I've just heard that. And just like interpreting a dream, because the language of spirit is in symbolisms, I then have to understand what they're trying to relay. Now, mediums take many years, as you'll know, to develop, because not only do they have to still their own mind and start to get disciplined and get on top of their thoughts, but they also have to learn a new language. And the spirit world will show me, for instance, symbolisms that I understand, like my shorthand, so that when I'm working now, I know a red wheel means this to me, certain, even, silly things like this. If I get this, I know that means somebody's got their own business, the responsibilities on their own shoulders. That's my shorthand.
Like spiritual sign language, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So it is like a charade.
Yeah.
Because, I generally feel, I don't know how they get the information across through mental mediumship. They must find it so frustrating on the other side of life. Because, it's they like a sign language. And so you're having to learn that. And the really good mediums are the ones who can get on top of their own thoughts and get clear, be empty, and then interpret what's coming to them accurately. And that's, I think, the real skill in it. We can all do this. We can all pick up crayons and we can all enjoy drawing, but we might not all be Banksy. It's the same principle, I think. I don't know if you agree.
I do indeed. It's so funny listening to you talk. It's really similar to how I teach the clairs and things. It's like I always say, it's exactly like our 3D senses. But if you want to develop your clairvoyance, really look when you're out and about. Be more visual. Really take in the detail. If you want to develop your clairaudience, learn to listen to people. Listen. And then you start to learn to listen to the voice in your own mind. I always find the beautiful messages that come through, they're often a lot kinder than our own voice too. We're often quite mean to ourselves as humans. We need to kind of start to lighten up, love ourselves more, and then that opens those other pathways in the brain, I think.
I think so, you're right. So, self-love, I think, is probably half of the reason why we're here. Most of us are trying to master that.
So I want to ask you, Claire, because you're very connected to spirit. Is most of your work to do with mediumship and seeing people in the afterlife? Do you have experience of angels and other kinds of beings as well, like fairies and things like that, elementals, or even like on this show we can talk about galactic beings and things like that? Do you have experience of those kinds of
all of it?
You do have all of it. I thought so. I can sense it.
Well, I never used to.
I'm like, she's not a medium, she's a channel. She's so much more than a medium.
I think that there is it's interesting because my spirit guide presents himself as Native American, put it that way. Yeah. It's interesting because actually I didn't know this would, but it has offended some people that I've said that, because I'm in Britain, don't know anything about Native American culture, and these days you have to be so PC, but I have to say it as it is. He presents himself as Native American and has given me many shamanic teachings through meditation, through my own journey, through learning to journeying in my mind. So it started out in that way, literally perceiving the deceased members of family members and helping people find comfort and healing. That's how the spirit world worked with me first. Although apart from my granddad, my first contact was with a higher being, a spirit guide. But then as time has gone on, I've found that as I've grown in my own life and, you know, real mediumship, real seers, true magi, whatever word you want to use, it's a depth of wisdom that you start to unfold in yourself, and that takes time. And as I began to become more wise, I write about in What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us, how when I had children, I found that because my heart centre opened up more and I became less selfish, my mediumship was going to another level, because I was able to receive and recognise and perceive far greater intelligence. Yeah. So now, as I've sat, I try and sit in more of trance-like states just for myself to develop my link. Oh my gosh, I have seen so many different intelligences being, I think they're probably archetypal, I don't know, but I mean, I've seen from Egyptian gods to crystalline beings, higher evolved beings that I believe are from star constellations, you know, have seen elementals, although that's not really, it's not something I see for myself. But when I have clients come who are ready for the next phase of learning, like they know that their deceased loved ones are okay, but they're coming for soul purpose or deeper meanings, just wanting to learn from spirit, they're the readings that really are a joy, because we can get right into, you know, get our teeth into stuff that really stretches me. I have seen for other clients elemental beings. I remember seeing for one lady who's out sort of Somerset way, the most amazing beings showing themselves to me that was with her, because she was doing like earth work, I suppose, like almost like earth magic really, but she wouldn't have called it that. She was sending healing to the earth, trying to heal nature, look after her area. And this being that was just absolutely covered in ivy is the way I saw it, who didn't like me at all. That's the funny thing.
They sometimes don't, the nature beings. They can be a bit like, get away from me.
Yeah, it was really, really cold. Like, don't like human beings, don't like what they're doing, don't like what you're doing. But working with her because she was doing something positive.
She's probably one of them. She's probably been a dryad in a past life.
Probably. But, you know, these sorts of things stop me in my tracks. The logical thinker that I am, who always needs to put this to the test, you know, I didn't believe in angels because I had, like many spiritual seekers, turned my back on the cultural conditioning I'd received and the religious upbringing I'd had, and I'd put it down to mythology, you know. And then when I start seeing these beings or receiving,
and they're like, you,
yeah, and you know, the really funny, I remember the first time I ever came into contact with Archangel Michael. I didn't see an angel because I wouldn't have received that. I saw a bearded man, almost of biblical type look, who said, "I'm St. Michael and I'm here to protect and heal you." And you know, I wasn't seeing anything angelic. I didn't even know who St. Michael was. And I asked I mean, this is how ignorant I was. Because I was much younger, but I asked my circle group who St. Michael was, and they were all laughing, saying, "Oh, it's Marks and Spencer's, you know, we're shopping the UK." I know it sounds daft, because obviously Archangel Michael to me is something completely different to St. Michael.
But you might have actually thought you were imagining it. You know, if he came in as that traditional angel form, you've seen so many pictures and depictions of that.
That's it, yeah.
You might have come in like that, and then you probably wouldn't have believed it. You'd be like, oh, I've just seen that somewhere. I used to picture Archangel Michael with like dark hair when I was a kid. I'd see him with the wings and everything, but that was more my imagination. And then I remember years ago in Sydney, I went home to Sydney. My mum made us go to church at St. Mary's Cathedral, and I was like, oh, I'm not interested in going to church. I'm just going to connect in with my angels. And I had this full-on experience with Michael, but he showed himself not at all how I'd imagined he would look. He was like the sexiest goddamn angel I think you could ever imagine. He was like all chiseled and like six-pack, and he had this sword and shield, and he had long flowing blonde hair, and I'm like, oh, I'm not usually into blondes, but you'll do. Like, it was like hilarious. I was like, wow. And then after that I kept seeing depictions after that of Michael with blonde hair, and people talking about Michael shows up with blonde hair, and I was like, oh, I never thought he had blonde hair. Never thought of him like that. But it's weird how they'll come in and show you different to what you expect, almost. Maybe to try and shock you or make you go, see, look, this is, you know.
Exactly. And then I mean, you know, I sort of sat up then, but what I was using a talking board, a Ouija board, okay? Many years later, that's another story in itself, because I used to think, oh,
don't
no.
play with those people unless you know.
No, exactly. Oh, no,
unless
no.
you're with a trained medium.
I did not. My own story is one of absolute fear and not going near the things, you know, and you know, it's probably too long to tell now, but basically the spirit world had even said to my mum when I was in school that there was a board in school and that I should not be using it. They'd got a message to her. Yeah. So from my whole life I had been avoiding the things, okay? Yeah. But then when it came to just before, this is the intelligence of spirit, when it came to just before I got the book Deal with Theresa invited me to write with her, this board was literally brought to my home. I did not go out and look for it. It was brought to my home. And my next door neighbour, believe it or not, came in with the board and we opened it and I was shaking. There was beautiful white feathers on it, which is the name of my spirit guide. And
white feathers.
Yeah, and so we sat down at this board because I thought, come on, Claire, don't be stupid. You've been developing now for 20 years, you know the spirit dimensions. You've got your own connection. You know how to protect yourself. You're not going to be attracting any nonsense. And if anyone comes along, they can just clear off. You know, we had the most amazing. Yeah. Angelic contact. I understand now. It's because they were showing me that I was going to start developing my channel with writing, and that was the first stages. There was letters on there they could take me to, and where I'm getting to with this is I got the name Uriel, but it was Auriel.
Uriel, yeah.
And I couldn't. That wasn't an angel. Because I haven't gone seeking angels. It's not something that I felt I resonated with.
Do you know there's also a connection in that for me? I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's when I looked, because I didn't know who Uriel is. I looked it up and saw that was the old spelling for it as well. That most people just spell it U-R-I-E-L. Mm. But I'd been given the old ancient spelling.
There's also Ariel.
Yeah. Which is, I mean,
the nature angel.
It's just the intelligence is amazing, isn't it? And the meaning of Uriel is the wisdom of God. It was the wisdom of God coming through onto the board. So, I mean, it's just beautiful. So now I'm like, yeah, there's angels. Hell yeah. Yeah, there's higher evolved beings, there's, crystalline beings, there's elementals, there's, I just don't run around.
It's infinite, isn't it? It's so multidimensional. Yeah.
I do wonder if they are actual. I do think they're probably real, but where I'm going with this is I wonder if things get thought into being sometimes. I sometimes question that.
What I've been shown is that there are aspects of us and us as the divine. It's like I always think of an angel represents the relationship between the human us and the divine us, and the quality of the relationship. So if the divine is a big crystal, the angel would be the highest aspect of each sort of facet of that crystal. So in our relationship with God, say we want to invoke our divine courage or our divine willpower at the highest level of our being, that's Michael. And even in the Hebrew language is all based on sacred geometry. It's really fascinating. Yeah. So the phonetics of Michael, you are invoking the highest divine will, and Raphael is the highest healing power of the divine, and Uriel the highest wisdom. And I think Uriel is also about compassion and forgiveness at that highest level too. So very connected with like Mary Magdalene and what she was teaching. So I do think they are part of us. So you invoke Michael. He comes in from our perspective as a guide, but he is also a part of you. So it's more empowering to think of that. You're invoking a higher aspect of your own consciousness in a way.
Absolutely, because this is where I'm getting to with it all now, is that ultimately we're all one, aren't we? We're all one in the one soup of consciousness. So to me, consciousness is primary. And therefore, I wonder whether some of these, you know, beings actually ever were, or whether the power has come in us creating that imagery. Like, you know, who's to know in
co-creation.
Yeah, it could be like Harry Potter could be. Do you know what I mean? The more people that focus on it, create it, give it image, give it power, give it, you know, I actually, you know, that is the alchemist, isn't it? I think, you know, I worked at Disney. I know Walt Disney was an alchemist. He managed to get everything
He
out.
knew all of this, didn't he? Tell us about Disney.
Well, I don't know. With regard, I mean, I know he was quite... wanting to create, if you want to create the happiest place on earth and you want to create perfection, it means you're trying to create something in this world that really isn't here. Does, you know?
So what was your role there, Claire, when you were there? I think it's funny how everything's always connected, isn't it?
Yes, well, I mean, actually that's a good lesson in life in general for all of us, because how many clients do I have sitting in front of me saying they don't know what their life purpose is, they don't know, you know, whether they're on the right track, they don't know if they're in the right place. I just think we need to all just sit back and relax, because where we are at is exactly where we're meant to be at. Because when I look back now, you know, I had always wanted to be in music because I was creative. I wanted to, you know, be in the music industry. And so I set out as a teenager to make sure that I got into music. Well, life zig and zags, doesn't it? You know, and I couldn't get a job in music, but I did get a job in advertising, and it was media. And I just thought, okay. And I loved my time in advertising. It was amazing, but it wasn't music. And then I've always been, I suppose, with what I do, open to fantasy, imagination, storytelling. And I thought, do you know where I want to go from here? I want to go and work at Disney. That's where I want to go. So I focused on it. And I do really believe in the law of attraction, because in my own life, every time I actually put my focus on something, I bring it to me. So it was so strange, because I literally went and found a temping agency that I said, get me into Disney. And they gave me, well, they got me 2 weeks temping, okay? But the really funny thing was there was a recruitment freeze on at the time, and no one across the whole of the world was being hired. So I'm saying to everyone, I want to work in Disney. You know, this is where I want to be. The magic, the creativity, everything, you know, it's who I am. I'm saying that to the spirit world. And so what comes up? 2 weeks in the record department with the music. And I get
every box ticked.
Yeah, I got 2 weeks work and stayed 7 years. Wow. So, and then I was able to get hired when nobody else got hired, because it was a new department that had come over from Paris to the UK. And it just, you know, that's how I got into all of that. And learning.
Is beautiful alignment, isn't it? It's just beautiful. You know you're in the right place.
And the really lovely thing was, then from there, my bosses were saying to me, because I was saying I want to go and learn to do massage. My soul was telling me, do something holistic, do something. So then they allowed me to massage at Disney. They moved my role around to let me do all that. And it was all laying the foundations. I was doing training. I was a training manager. Every part of what I'd learnt was coming into play for what I was going to need it for. It was never about all that. That was it's almost like I was being humoured in the early part of my life to have fun, do the thing I wanted to do, as long as I was gaining the skills I was going to need for like now. And now every element of it, the magic, understanding the magic in the Disney, the thought, the creation, the spiritual side of it. I think that's what I was saying. Like Walt Disney literally created a character in his mind and has literally brought into manifestation.
Brought into life. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. And so to me, you know, magic's damn real if you want to look at it in that sense of the word. Spirit communication is absolutely real. These archetypes are absolutely real. Because if we create them, focus on them, work towards them, we manifest them. And, it's happening in your everyday life. I don't know why people would find it so hard to believe.
I know.
That's not possible.
I think all these abilities are part of our true divine blueprint, and we've just forgotten how to use them, like we were saying before. I'm having experience now where the mediumship and the channeling has opened up kind of one step further, and I'm having real-time, real-life telepathic conversations with people. And I've had it with emotion, like we can feel each other, like you say, that's part of our own telepathic connection. But the last month, and I haven't contacted him on email yet, but I will do. The last month I have been connecting telepathically, visually, as well as it's like he's in front of me like you are now, with an Aboriginal elder in Australia. And we both came face to face. I was doing a goddess workshop, and I was working with the white flame, the white fire, which is where we kind of embodying the goddess. And I came, boom, in my vision, face to face with this Aboriginal man, and he went, "Oh, you've come." you've come. And I went, "Who did you ask for?" And he went, "I asked for Great Mother to come, and you're here." And I went, "Yeah, you got me." And I was like, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "Are you in the flesh?" And I went, "Yeah, are you?" And he went, "Yeah." We're like face to face. And he goes, "Then we're destined to meet." And I went, "I guess so." And we had this whole conversation, and now 3 more times since then, I've connected with him. I'm pretty sure I know his name, and I'm pretty sure I know who he is. I've Googled him.
Wow.
And I'm going to connect with him. I'm being called to Uluru when I go home next, and I think that's at Christmas.
Oh, how beautiful.
It's blown my mind. I mean, I've had this before where I've accidentally caught remote viewers, like CIA, like Secret Service type, Men in Black type thing. And I was like, thought, is this spirit? I was like, oh my God, it's real time. And they're looking, I had earpieces in, and it was like the movies. And they're looking at me going, "Who is she?" And I was like, close down, don't let them see you. You know, it's like cross wires. But yeah, telepathy, I think, is one of the next steps that we're going to be really using. And the Aborigines use it. They barely, they say that the voice wasn't actually created for conversation. It was created for devotion and chant and sound and healing. And we were meant to communicate with these senses through the mind.
Isn't that, it's so beautiful. I mean,
blowing my mind, yeah.
They understand so much, don't they? Even like dream time and that whole reality there, it's just the way that you look at these ancient traditions, all knowing about how life came from spirit first into being. I just think there's, like you say, so much knowledge. And there's the science behind all this now. I mean, telepathy is pretty much scientifically
It's our
proven.
DNA, isn't it? It's all in our DNA.
I've included in, because this is me, like needing to put some of the research in with the hands-on stuff, I've included research that was done in universities in America where they have proven telepathy's there, they've got the data. Basically, it's just, are you ready to believe it?
And even like Eben Alexander, talking about him when he left his body and he heard the conversations in the room. It wasn't connected to his brain. He was out of his body. He was dead, clinically dead. So we know consciousness is so much. Oh, it's giving me all goosebumps. It's so exciting.
Well, that's the thing. We don't. It's just awe-inspiring to me because we know about this much. We think we're so advanced. We're not advanced at all.
No, we're not.
Just this complete. I find excitement about life because it constantly keeps unfolding and through ways that you just wouldn't even perceive as possible. 20 years ago when I started out, if people had said to me, "Oh, well, higher evolved beings and alien communication is connected with mediumship," I'd have said, "Oh, rubbish." They're two different things, and I don't know whether one's proven or one's not, but I do know the afterlife's real. Now I'm like, okay, it's all part of the same thing here. We're talking about interdimensions and different realities, and why not?
Exactly.
In fact, when I leave this planet, I'm going to a different one.
You've probably been on several already. One of the things my guides are kind of asking me to ask you, sorry, they always do this in interviews, right? Ask her about this. And I know we talk about a lot about the beauty of this and the lightness of being and everything, but what would you say to people who who are either afraid of seeing something scary if they open up, or people who have been having experiences of seeing probably some not very pleasant things in the spirit world. What's your take on all of that?
Well, I really am of the sort of hermetic principle of as above, so below.
Yeah.
So there is a law that works in the spiritual dimensions that works even more in our protection than it does even in this world, which is like attracts like. So yes, in the spirit dimensions, are there, if you want to use the word, more negative thinking intelligences or lower intelligences, lower energies? Yes. Just like there are in this world.
Yeah.
But in this world, in fact, I'm more frightened of the people in this world because they can do me physical harm.
Yeah.
The difference in spirit being that if your intention is true and loving and empowering, with the intent to learn and to grow and to reach higher states of evolution, then you are going to naturally align yourself with that.
Yeah.
And some people believe if they bump up against these lower energies when they're not developed, and so they feel frightened. Most people bump up against just a normal spirit person and feel frightened of it because they don't understand
they don't know it.
Yeah, and that's not a low energy at all. But if you have had a, for want of a better word, negative experience, the way out of those experiences is to focus on the higher. So the higher emotions, to bring yourself into a state of love, isn't actually to have to sort of fight that off. It's to actually remove yourself into a state of peace, love, enlightenment. You will just disconnect.
Yeah.
In fact, White Feather has taught me, just don't engage.
Yeah.
Just don't engage at all, you know. And so when you learn that there's a natural protection in place, that you are most likely not going to ever come across those things. I mean, I don't. And I'm working with spirit every day of my life. I don't come across it. I come across the most loving, mind-blowing beings that are trying to lift me up, not, squash me down. But when you understand that there is a way to steer clear of all that, to surf over the top of it, which is that your emotional state of being is your protection. And if you are in a healthy state of mind, with love in your heart, with the right intent, then you have nothing to worry about.
Stay in your joy, isn't it? I think
exactly. Then you're nowhere near it.
It's like the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I know. Yes. I've done an awful lot of shadow work, and I don't know why I say awful lot. I've done a heck of a lot of shadow work, and that's when I've noticed that some of those energies can come in, but always the invitation is the only way out is in. So it's an opportunity to deepen more into self-love. And like you say, deepen into self-love, lift yourself up, raise your vibration, stay with your joy, and don't be afraid of anything. I do.
No.
It's like you said, we treat it like the 3D. I have a really good medium friend called Anne Scholes, who I recently interviewed as well. And she always says, you just treat everything like 3D. Be matter of fact about it. If someone's annoying you in this world, you say no thanks, and you go on your way. And the same with spirit. No thanks. Bye.
Exactly.
Yeah, I choose
and it
this.
is like a phone conversation. Just hang up, don't engage, go off, do something else, separate your mind off. That doorway closes, and then next time you're ready to open up, it's clear. I mean, if you want to include rituals in your life where you feel like you're cleansing the room, cleansing the space, it's probably a good idea. One experience I had that really taught me a lot, and this is where actually you have to wonder whether sometimes bumping up against the shadow is more educational than if we only live in the light, because I remember having a client, and she was so emotionally depressed when she came in through grief. But I realised as I look back, it was probably also because she had, mental health issues. Not as in she was crazy, but just like all of us are dealing with our mind. And she was so low and so depressed. I gave her the most enlightening reading. It was one of those where spirit knew there was a need, and she had so much information that her whole demeanour changed. She didn't believe in the afterlife when she walked in. She literally shifted. And I can remember looking at her thinking, she looks younger. She looked physically younger when she left, and her shoulders were up. And she said to me as she left, and I'll never forget it, I feel so much lighter. Now, that was amazing. I was like, pat myself on the back. Wow, you know, ego comes in. And then that night, my daughter was having a nightmare. And I went in to check on her, and I walked into this energy, and she's saying in her sleep, no, 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 you know. And as I stood there, I could feel that there was a mass. Now, it wasn't a mass of energy. It wasn't an intelligent spirit being. It wasn't, because I think sometimes spirit beings get the rap for all of this. Yeah. It was a thought form. Yeah. It was a thought form that had been dropped, and it was looking for somewhere to go. And penetrating, I think, probably her sleep. But I stood there in the middle of the room, having sensed it, thinking, I'm losing my mind here with all of this. But if you know, and literally, I stood and was saying, in a mother's love, you can't exist here. You have to leave. You cannot exist in the light and the love of this mother's love around this child. And it just went straight through me, straight through my body, and out, gone. And I felt my whole, almost like my blood pool. It was this weird feeling like the energy had been taken out of my feet, but it had gone. And from that mark, I remember thinking, we don't understand love, thought, the power of you know, all of that, intention, your own, owning your own power. It couldn't exist there. And
that's the energy of love, isn't it?
Yeah, and then I just thought, I don't ever have to be frightened again. I don't ever. All I have to ever do is get into that space where I'm feeling love for someone or something, a pet, an animal. You know, when I'm in that, it can't exist.
It neutralizes everything, doesn't it?
It does, and it sounds so trite, doesn't it?
But it is simple. It's so simple. I think as humans, we like to overcomplicate things, don't we? We want to feel like we've got a challenge or something. There's something in that tussle that we do with life. But actually, if we just keep it simple and allow and open and let things flow and stay in that vibration of love, everything just unfolds according to it. Everything kind of works for your highest good, and everything will flow in the way it's meant to.
Yes, and I think it's ultimately understanding, like you're saying, that you are that power.
Yeah.
And so why do you need to be frightened of something which you are? You like, we all know we've got a shadow self, and I'm not frightened of my own inner self.
Your own stuff.
I just have to work with it, you know. Is it enjoyable? No, but I'm not frightened of the fact that I have negative thoughts sometimes that don't serve me, you know. I wouldn't say I'm fearful of it. It's irritating, annoying. I want to change it. But I'm not frightened of myself. Yeah. And I think, if, like you're saying, you know, it's exactly as in spirit as here. If you came across somebody who was depressed in this world, you wouldn't be frightened of them. You would think, how can I help them? Is there something I could say? If I come across somebody in the spirit world who seems depressed or not understanding of where they are, or could be existing in a more content state of being, then I just help them to see another way by trying to coach them. It doesn't have to be all demons and evil. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, we sort of can blow things up in our own minds, can't we? A lot of the time, I think.
It's just the not knowing. It's, you know, when I was a teenager, I was absolutely petrified of what I was experiencing. You know, it's the lack of knowledge and then feeling vulnerable because you don't know how to deal with it. But it, like you're saying, it's so simple, because really it comes down to your state of mind. You don't have to understand all of the magical textbooks. You don't have to have a deep knowledge of the occult. You don't have to be a demonologist. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to ingrain yourself in this. All spiritual philosophy is different methods of the same thing, which is to bring you to a higher state of awareness within yourself and move you from lower emotions into higher loving emotions. That's it. It doesn't matter which method you choose, whatever one works for you. And that is evolution of the soul, isn't it? That's the same in spirit, in non-physical, as it is in physical.
I love your philosophy, Claire. I think we all need to take some Clairology with us, and I think that we, exactly what you said, we can apply it to everything. Watching the news, looking at the state of the world at the moment, we can easily go into fear. I'm finding at the moment we've just come into 2020, and but it's like both things are happening. The miraculous and the beautiful is happening on such a high level. Really, I'm seeing so much more evidence, and I think more and more people are waking up to it. And then we've got all this kind of illusion playing out on the planet that could easily send you into fear. But if we stay in that balanced state and just go, right, I'm just going to focus on love, and then we're going to attract in more of that goodness. Exactly how you said it is absolutely stunning, and it's so simple. It doesn't need to be complex.
No.
So can you tell us a little bit just about your books and how people can get hold of your books, and how people can connect with you if they're interested in your work?
Sure. Well, I have a Facebook page with a lovely community of open-minded people that are all learning. So you can come and join me there. I'd love to have you on my own YouTube channel, Alex.
Oh my God, I'd love to. Thanks.
I'm just kind of getting that going. There's so many misconceptions about mediumship, even down to people not understanding there's a difference between psychic ability and mediumship, and you know, there's so much really that needs to be educated with the general public. That's my channel, Together with Spirit, is hopefully going to be a place where people can come and get a resource of information that's grounded, thought out, you know, in this world and not in this world.
Well, this is it, because we need to just make it all normal now, don't we? It is part of who we
it needs to be integrated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be all fluffy and out there. It needs to be, like I said at the beginning, something that can be applied in your life that will help you live your best life. So that's my philosophy. And my books are on Amazon. There's Answers from Heaven that I wrote with Theresa Cheung, which is an introduction really to what mediumship is. She writes it from the view of a researcher, so she has written about people's true stories, about the contact they've had, direct afterlife contact they've had. And then I write the second half of the book from the perspective of a practitioner who is working with spirit all the time. Again, demystifying it, bringing the science into it, allowing people to find information so that they can hopefully avoid some of the, sort out the wheat from the chaff and not have a negative experience. And when I say negative, I don't mean spiritually. I mean with people out there that will take your money and run and give you that rubbish.
There's plenty of those, unfortunately.
Yes,
it's all balance. Two sides to every coin.
Well, that's it. Is that we're living in a world of duality, aren't we?
Yeah.
So that's the first book, Answers from Heaven, and then my most recent book, What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us. There's 7 lessons that I've received over my 24 years of working as a practitioner that the spirit world have taught me, that I'm helping others to learn so that they can bring the practice of a spiritual connection into their own life. And I sometimes think, speaking for myself, I can only speak for myself. When I used to go into church, I'd hear the beautiful teachings, listen to the amazing things that enlightened teachers like Jesus were doing, but never got taught how to imply that in my life.
Yeah.
So
how to do it yourself, really.
How to do it yourself, how to have that communion. It's done through others. So my teachings are all about empowering other people to find how they have that connection for themselves, so they don't have to listen to me and trying to believe me. They can try themselves safely, in a logical manner, and learn. So that's what the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us is about.
Get their own evidence, right? Because we need our own evidence, don't we?
Yeah, until you have it yourself, you're never going to believe, are you? So that's what it's about. So my books are on Amazon. They're in bookshops. And come and find me at www.clairebroad.com, and you can find out everything I'm doing, because, as you said, it's kind of been propelled into this next level over the last couple of years. Which is great, but I'm just running with it now and trying to. It's just me. I don't have my lovely mum helps me, but I don't have a team. I don't have a publicity team. Don't have agents. I'm just trying to keep this humble.
Yes, you do, darling. You've got a whole team of spirit and angels working.
Well, I do, and they have made it quite clear what they want me to do. They were the ones who were telling me for 20 years, we want you to write. You're going to write for us. It's going to look like this. The books are going to have these covers. They're going to start writing in these months, and it was coming at me. And I was have
you got another book coming out, honey? Are you thinking? Are you working on something now?
I'm not at the moment, but I believe there's one coming, because I've started to receive titles, chapters, insights. So
Yeah, it's all in your energy field. I'm like, there's another book coming really soon, giving me chills.
Yes, I'm waiting now because I needed a break. I'd written non-stop, 2 books back to back. I've got 2 young children. I'm still trying to serve the public. I needed just a bit of a break, but now I've noticed that inspiration's coming in. I never went looking for book deals. It happened to me. So I have a feeling the 3rd is going to happen, but I don't know when yet. So this year, I think. I don't know, but this year.
Amazing. Oh, keep working your magic, honey. I love it. It just connecting with you. I feel so like, woo, she's got the nicest energy. And I'm sure this is coming through the screen as well.
Oh,
have you got any parting words for our viewers just before we prepare to finish up? I could talk to you for days, though. I'm seriously, we've been talking for about an hour. I could keep going.
Well, maybe we can do it again.
We'll do a follow-up. We have to do a follow-up.
Well, I think, do you know what's so refreshing about this interview is I can get into stuff that is on the edge of what I'm learning. It's not the everyday stuff that you expect from mediums on this kind of interview. We've been able to get into stuff that is much more interesting in a sense that we can go beyond the boundaries of what, just bringing through a deceased person, telling you what evidence of survival is, that stuff's all out there. This is more interesting in that sense. It gives other people something else to think about, doesn't it? Yes. Because you're quite right, practitioners, probably not just me, I should imagine many mediums who are working within the boundaries of what people expect from their services are actually in their own practices getting a whole lot more that they haven't yet had the strength to step out and sound like they've lost the plot. Which I don't mind.
I just do that. I just do that for you, darling. But I think this is the thing. A dear friend of mine, Steve Nobel, who he teaches.
I love Steve Nobel. I didn't know you were friends.
Yeah, he's a dear friend. He just says, whatever you're talking about, just talk about it as though it's normal. And then people won't look at you like you're a freak. So even if you think you sound like a freak, if you think normal, the irony about us is we're both very normal women, like very normal, grounded human beings. We're clearly not nuts,
No.
We hold down jobs. We have lives. I have a husband who's very grounded in the 3D world, who works in recruitment. You're a mom. You've got kids. We can feed and clothe ourselves, and we're not incapable. So I think it does something to people's minds when you do talk about this stuff. They go, hang on, but you're really normal, and but what? And you're like, yeah, because it just is. It
is normal, because this is just part of reality. And isn't it amazing? I think my parting words would be to not fear life, but take it by both hands, because you can't die, and you will not die alone. So even in the physical body, when the physical body dies, you have no idea of the love and the guidance and the nurturing that is waiting for you. If we could really understand that, we wouldn't be running towards death, because we're here because life is beautiful and we love it. But we would make the most of it here, knowing we're here for a reason, and we wouldn't feel frightened to take risks, do challenges, make the most of every day, because life is awesome. And the more you understand, the more you realise there is so much really to be grateful for and thankful for, even in the darkest moments. And people are talking to me a lot, obviously, from a standpoint of, I've lost someone and I feel like I can't imagine my life without them, and I feel completely low. Life has no meaning for me. But even in those moments, if you could see the growth that's going on within you and what's to come because of that, you would even be able to, in your moments of sadness, access moments of joy at the same time. That's where I find this knowledge leads me, that even when I'm sad, I can find contentment, peace within. Even when I'm challenged, I know there's meaning, nothing is lost, and that ultimately you can't die. So let's lighten up a little bit and enjoy the ride.
I love it. Oh, you're such an inspiration, honey. Thank you so, so much, Claire, for coming on the show. And yeah, guys, if you're watching this, do check out Claire. Oh my God, it's 11:11 as we finish the interview.
Brilliant. There's our
There's our evidence.
evidence.
Talk about alignment. I love it so much. Yeah, do check out Claire. I'm going to put all the links below the video so you can see her website, see her Facebook. And I'll put is your YouTube up and running now, honey?
Yes, it is. Together with Spirit. Yeah, you can find me.
Amazing.
I'm just not quite as established as you are, but
oh, mate, it won't take you long. Seriously, you're flying. You've got those angel wings on the go.
Well, that's it. You and I, we've got unseen helpers pushing us forward.
Yeah. It can leave you feeling a bit nervous because you're like, whoa, the rapidity of some of it, but it's all good.
Well, no, I'm now of the viewpoint where I'm kind of thinking, I better do this work, because what I don't want to do is get to the other side and then say, go back.
Go back.
You
Didn't
get it all done.
I'm ready to ascend.
Absolutely.
ready to go live in the angelic realm for a bit now, I think. I think we've earned it. Oh, I love it. Well, just to say thank you, everyone, for watching the show. Thank you so much, Claire, for being here.
Thank you, and thank you to your viewers.
Such a magical day. I feel so light and happy and amazing. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Claire. And until next time, thank you for watching the Alexandra Wenman Show. Namaste, everyone.